Hi everyone, okay, this is the 10th and final game in the series on Bobby Fischer. Here he had the black pieces against Larry Evans, who was a very strong American grandmaster, and the two in fact had an interesting history together. Evans was Fischer's second in his candidates tournament leading up to his World Championship match with Boris Spassky, but they fell out for some reason before that match took place. Anyway, to get into this game, Evans opened with d4, after which came knight f6, c4, e6, which is leading into the Nimzo-Indian defense, an opening that Bobby used occasionally against d4 instead of his pet king's Indian. And then came some normal developing moves with knight c3, bishop b4 and e3, which is the Rubinstein system, named after the great player Akiba Rubinstein. And here Bobby played b6, which was the move favoured by Aaron Nimzovich, who developed this opening and introduced it into the chess mainstream early in the 20th century. He liked to fianchetto the light square bishop in order to take further control of the important central square e4, which is the main idea of the Nimzo-Indian. And then knight g e2 and bishop a6, which is the move that Bobby preferred to play rather than fianchettoing the bishop on b7. And this variation is in fact called the Fischer variation of the Nimzo-Indian defense, because he used it with so much success throughout his career. And the aim behind it is to exchange off the light square bishops after later d5 from black, which ensures good play on the light squares. So a3, bishop takes c3 check, knight takes c3 and d5, where it would be unwise for white to capture on with the pawn, because then would come bishop takes f1 and white would lose kingside castling rights. So b3, knight c6, bishop e2, castles, a4, d takes c4, bishop a3 and rook e8, which is the last book move. And here Evans played b4, so he's temporarily a pawn down, and his idea presumably is to get some initiative due to the threat of b5, which would win a piece, but it's not a good line to go with, and Fritz already assesses the game as being slightly better for black. Main line here is instead b takes c4, simply, and it's completely equal. So b4, knight e7, and white castles, which is falling prey to playing routinely in the opening, because this gives black even more of an advantage. Better here was b5, and after bishop b7 it's completely equal, and black will not be able to hold on to the pawn here at c4. So he castled anyway, and then comes knight e d5 with a strong central knight that cannot be taken immediately without allowing black to maintain the pawn at c4, where it could become a potentially dangerous passed pawn. Say for example knight takes d5, e takes d5. So rook c1 and c6, which is another nice move, because now if white takes the knight on d5, black can recapture and he'll have a sound pawn structure. In that variation before, the pawn on d5 was backward, but it wouldn't be after the c pawn recaptured. So bishop f3, b5 and a5, and black manages to hold on to the pawn here at c4. Queen c7. Oops, hold on now. Queen c7, queen c2, rook a d8, rook f d1, bishop b7, rook d2, knight takes c3, queen takes c3 and c5, which is a great move from Bobby. Some people call him a materialistic player, but as you can see, that's not always the case. By giving the pawn back, he frees his game and ensures a different advantage, no matter how white takes the pawn. Evans played d takes c5, which gives good play to black on the d file and allows him to do some structural damage around the white king after bishop takes f3 and g takes f3. If instead after c5, b takes c5, then bishop takes f3, g takes f3, knight d5, queen c2, c3, rook d d1, queen takes a5, and black has a good knight against a bad bishop. He's still a pawn up, and soon he'll have connected passed pawns and far better position. So that's also good. That's another way it could have gone. And the other option after c5 was played is bishop takes b7. Then would come c takes d4, rook takes d4 and queen takes b7, which again would favour black strongly. So d takes c5, bishop takes f3, g takes f3, rook takes d2, queen takes d2, rook d8, which gains control of the only open file with tempo. queen e1 and rook d3, which is a strong outpost for the rook on the 6th rank that Evans can never take without giving black a dangerous passed pawn. So bishop b2, knight d5, bishop c3 to defend b4, f6 is preparing to move e5, bishop a1 and e5, which has a few ideas in mind. Firstly, it controls d4, so white can't put pieces there, and also it supports knight f4 if white ever plays e4 to kick this knight. So king g2, queen d7, and black has total control of the d-file. And this is really a positional nightmare for Evans. He has virtually no play here at all. And to make matters worse, he now blundered with the rook c2. And this allows black a couple of great moves. Bobby found the strongest with e4, which maintains a winning and rock-solid positional advantage. And that's the way that he liked to play, because it gives his opponent no counterplay at all. The main alternative here was a tactical shot rook d1, to which black's best hope is c6. Playing queen takes d1 instead loses to knight takes e3 check, f takes e3, and queen takes d1. So after c6 comes queen d6, and best play continues. c7, knight takes c7, queen c3, knight d5, queen a3 to maintain this bishop, e4, f takes e4, queen e6, threatening queen g4, which would be mate. The best way to defend, or the only way to defend really, is f3. And then comes queen f7, and black can generate a crushing attack. Fritz gives an advantage of 11 pawns, and the main threat is queen g6 check, with mate to follow shortly. All of white's pieces are stranded on the queen side, and it's not very easy for them to come back and defend. And black's active queen, his central knight, and his rook on the 8th make his attack absolutely unstoppable. And the knight is immune. If e takes d5, then queen g6 check and its mate in 3, with king h3, rook g1, bishop takes f6, queen h5 check, bishop h4, and queen f5 is mate. So it's crushing. So e4 anyway is what Bobby played, and then Evans played rook c1, and after blundering he at least manages to find the best defensive move. If instead of rook c1, f takes e4, then comes queen g4 check, king f1, knight takes e3, check, f takes e3, queen f3, king g1, and rook d1, winning easily. So rook c1 is what he played, then came e takes f3 check, and king h1, king takes f3, loses. Let's have a quick look. Queen h3 check, king e2, knight takes e3, and it's easily winning. If f takes e3, rook takes e3 check, king f2, queen f3 check, king g1, queen g4 check, king f1, rook f3 check, queen f2 is the only move, rook takes f2, king takes f2, queen f4 check, king g2, and queen takes c1. So king h1, knight takes b4, and now Bobby is 2 pawns up with the same crushing positional advantage, and white has practically no counterplay. Evans tried queen g1, threatening to take with the bishop on f6, and Bobby takes care of this before pursuing a further attack with king f7. Then bishop d4, knight c6, queen g3, knight takes d4, e takes d4, rook takes d4, and now he's 3 pawns up with an easily winning advantage. Evans tried the unsubtle rook g1, and came g5, c6. Queen takes c6, queen b8, rook d7 to defend a7, h3, queen e6, rook g3 and c3. And now it's completely lost for white. Queen h8 is trying to drum up some counterplay, but it's hopeless after queen f5. King h2 and rook d2, threatening rook takes f2, which would lead to mate, and Evans really should resign here. He played rook takes f3, offering the rook for some counterplay, but as always Bobby denies him this, and instead plays rook takes f2 check, which forces rook takes f2, and now it's a matter of simple technique. And what's instructive in this next sequence is how Bobby picks off the h-pawn with check, ensuring Evans still has no counterplay, with queen takes f2 check, and in this sequence, and queen takes h3 check, king e2, g4, and then really it's a matter of technique, as I said. King e1, and white is trying to get some counterplay with queen e8 check, and king can't take her at stalemate. But Bobby didn't fall for that, naturally, and he just continues his onslaught as follows. And here comes the finishing touch with queen g6 check, and here Evans resigned because after he moves his king, say for example with king f3, there's queen g8, forcing the exchange of queens, after which the black pawns are unstoppable. So it was another great game from Bobby Fischer, and that's the last in the series, so I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave any comments or thoughts. Thanks very much.